Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to get started. It is now 1 o'clock. So welcome and thanks for joining us. My name is Amy Haynes, and I am the marketing manager for college success products here at Macmillan Learning. So today's webinar is going to walk through the newly updated features in ACES, which is our self-assessment tool for first-year students. ACES is used in our Launchpad platform, which also houses our ebook and homework and other learning resources. My colleague also on the line is Heather Halter Kimball, and she is going to be demoing the new features and what you need to do to get prepared for the fall. So while today's discussion is aimed at those of you who are already using ACES, like I said, to help you get ready for fall, it also will give you a valuable overview of this. So anyone here who is not currently using it or you're curious, this will be valuable for you as well. And at the end, we'll let you know how to set up further training as needed. So before I pass things over to Heather, I just have a couple housekeeping items for using this GoToWebinar platform. So you should see an attendee control panel hovering maybe somewhere in the top right of your screen. You, by default, you are listening to this with your computer speakers. So if you can hear, you should be good to go. But of course, if you prefer to call in on your phone, in the audio panel, you just click phone call and a box will pop up with the phone number that you can dial. You may also notice that you're muted. This is just an automatic setting when we have multiple people on the line, but when it comes time to answer questions, I can unmute you. So speaking of which, another way that you can interact with us while we are on the line together, you can use the raise hand button, which looks handily like a hand. Click that and I'll get a notification and I can see what's going on. I can unmute you if needed. And then you can also use the question box, which is down here on the bottom half of your control panel. Type in your question, hit send. I'll get that as well. And I will either type an answer back to you or hold on to it if it makes sense to save for the Q&A section. So with that, I will pass things over to Heather.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amy. Let me get my screen shared here. All right. Are you seeing my screen now, Amy?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for attending today. For those of you watching this recording at a later date, we appreciate you and your use of ACES. If you're here today or again watching this at a later date, chances are that you already use ACES in your course. So you already know what an amazing tool it is for your college success or first year course. Because of that, I'm not going to spend too much time on the basics of how ACES works. But if you would like to learn more about it, I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one, and we'll have details on how you can set up one of those sessions with me at the end of our time today. So instead, what I want to focus on are the new updates that were made to ACES just about a month ago, which makes it both more user-friendly and more useful for your course and your institution. Again, my name is Heather Halter. I'm Learning Solutions Specialist with Macmillan Learning, and I actually used to teach for several years myself, including a couple semesters as an adjunct of the first year course. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this today. Specifically, we're going to take a look at the new organization and new functionality for ACES, which is available in Launchpad Solo in its own product, Connections, both the first and second editions, Connections Essentials, and Step by Step. We're going to take a look at a new ACES folder for instructors, the new dashboard that's available, and the 4 types of reports that are now available as well. I'm going to exit out of my slides here and jump on into Launchpad itself. I'd like to start off with a very important note. Now, we pushed these updates through back in June. It was the end of May, early June. If you have not created a new Launchpad section from scratch since then, it's in your best interest to make sure you do that for your fall semester. Just to make sure that all the updates went through, nothing's glitchy, make sure everything works fine. Again, we recommend that you create a new course for the fall rather than creating a copy of your previous semester. And real quick, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, I'll walk through the process of that. So I've logged into Launchpad. Let's say I'm already in my Launchpad course. You'll need to go back to your dashboard. And to do that, if you're signed in, you'll go to your name in the upper corner and go to Switch Create Courses. From that, you'll end up back at your dashboard where you can manage all of your different sections. And then we want to go ahead and click on plus create course right at the top of the page. You're going to walk through a couple little prompts here where this is just confirming you're in the correct Launchpad. You do not want to make a copy of an existing course, so skip past this and then fill in your course information. My one recommendation is just in this course title box, make sure to name this something specific to your course, as this is what students see when they're trying to access Launchpad. So it just allows them a nice reassurance that they're in the right place. So maybe your course name, section number, the time and date that you meet, since students don't always remember section numbers, but they know they meet Tuesday, Thursday at 1 o'clock, the semester, and your last name. The rest of this information is optional, but do make sure that you've updated to the correct academic term and make sure that your time zone is correct as well. Otherwise, go ahead and click Create, and you'll see your new course listing right here. And from here, you enter your course and start setting up your assignments. Again, if this is something that you need some help with before classes start, feel free to sign up for some time with me. I'm happy to help. We'll discuss how to do that at the end of the session today. For now, though, I'm going to jump back into my demo course down here, since that's where I've got all the good stuff that you guys came to see today. Now, worth noting that with the ACES inventory, everything as far as the student is concerned is exactly the same as before. It's got the same scales. It is still norm referenced, although worth noting we did update our reference group. Now there are over 42,000 college students represented, so a great representative sample there. And we did add 3 new demographic questions as well. But otherwise, to your students, this will look exactly the same as it has before. We now call this the ACES Inventory Initial Report. Depending on which Launchpad you were using before, this may have been called a couple of different things. The initial report is essentially kind of the pre-test version of ACES. You want to give this towards the beginning of the semester. So initial, start, beginning, that's kind of your hint for assign this first. In this own folder, this looks very similar to before, except of course we renamed it the initial report. And this is what you'll want to actually assign to your students by clicking the assign button. And then we've also included a student's guide to using ACES. So if they have any questions about how it works, the norm reference, how to interpret their results, we've got all that information right here. And then also worth noting that at the end of the chapter listing, although mine's up at the top because I've already assigned it, we now have available for everybody essentially kind of an ACES post-test. So a second opportunity for students to take ACES at the end of the semester so that they can gauge their progress that they've made over the course of the semester. And as a result, of course, we've renamed this the progress report and activity. The progress report will again be the same as ACES the first time they took it. We do take out the demographic questions, no point in answering that again. That likely hasn't changed over the course of the semester. But depending on which version of ACES you were using before, we've removed that Likert scale quiz that you may have seen before. And we've replaced it with a reflective activity. If you're using the Connections second edition, you get this handy dandy capstone activity that will actually fill in students' scores from the initial report and the progress report so that they can see how many areas they've improved upon. And then they work through this little interactive activity here where they reflect back on their semester and think about why their scores may be different. If you're not using Connections 2E, you do also have a very similar activity to this. It's just that it won't automatically populate with the student's scores. Instead, it's a downloadable PDF that they can either fill out on their computer or print it out and complete by hand. But it'll be the same general activity. Okay. So those are the changes as far as students are concerned. Again, all we really did was change the names and added a different uniform activity. The big changes all pertain to you as the instructor. Notice how previously the ACES inventory folder was where you went for everything. But you also had to kind of click around to a bunch of different places. So it was admittedly a little clunky. So what we did is streamline things and now have everything the instructor could need all in one place. It's in this grayed out hidden item. We hide it because the students don't need to see it, but you still can. You come down to this folder that says ACES Instructor Resources and Reports. And again, everything you need will be available in this one location. We start off with the instructor's guide to using ACES. And this is kind of a pared back version of what we used to have available in here. I think it's a little more concise. Before we had a lot of stuff in here. But what's really handy is if you do have any questions about how ACES works as far as a technical sort of setup, you can visit the ACES page of the Macmillan knowledge base. And it'll provide you all sorts of different handy links. The next item in here is the Instructor Reports dashboard, which I'm going to come back to next because that's where all the best information lives. But worth noting that right from this folder, you can also view the inventory questions if you were curious to see them, and you can view the feedback that's given to students. These two items are the same as they were before. We just kind of moved the location of where you access them. So with that then, let's move into what I'm considering the best part, the ACES Instructor Reports dashboard. Everything that you're going to need is all available in one place. And as you'll see in a minute, everything is also very symmetrical, so it's easy to navigate as well. There are basically 4 different types of reports, as we can see in these tabs up top. The initial, which is of course the first time students take ACES at the start of the semester. The progress report, which is the second time students take ACES at the end of the semester. A brand new tab that we have available is the comparison. You can see students' initial and progress scores side by side on one chart. And then another new tab is the change report. This looks at the changes in scores in raw numbers, not on the national normed scale. And we'll of course go into each of these in a little more detail in just a minute. But let's jump back to the initial report first. You'll notice now that you can have sort of 3 different versions of the report. 2 of these we had available before, but you had to jump around to different pages, and it just wasn't very practical to access. So the class report is what you're used to seeing for anyone who's used ACES before. It looks exactly the same. You'll see it's still norm referenced. We've got all of the scales over on this side. But one thing that actually I don't think a lot of people knew before, you can click on the scale and see which of your students fall into the low ranks, moderate ranks, and high ranks as well. So that's a handy feature that's always been there, but personally, I just found out about it myself, so I thought maybe you guys would want to know about it as well if you didn't. One thing that has been improved is that previously, if you wanted to look at an individual student, you would have to type their name into this box. And instead, we fixed it now so you get a nice drop down of all of your students. So if there's someone in particular you want to check out, you just select their name. And another improvement is worth noting with our print options. So as the instructor, now when you print this out, it tells you which report in specific you're printing out. We didn't have that information before. It includes the term and the date you printed. And additionally, if your students print out their own scores, it will have their name printed at the top, which we didn't have previously and made it tricky for students who maybe, brought a physical copy of it to class. So a really good improvement there. The next part I want to take a look at is the roster report. Again, you guys had access to this before, but we have changed the location so that everything's all in one handy place. And this allows you to see how all of your students did on one particular scale. So this can be really useful as you refer back to ACES throughout the semester. As you come to the chapter on note-taking, you can pop in here and see how everybody did on that in ACES, and then of course maybe adjust your lecture or your activities accordingly. One brand new option we have in here is going to be the institutional report. And what this does is it pulls all the students at your university who have completed ACES. And you can see those normed scales here. And so one way this can be really helpful is, one, you get a nice glance at how your school does as a whole compared to the traditional college student. And you can also kind of flip back and forth between the class report and the institutional report to see how your class stacks up to everyone at your school. Okay. So this tab is likely for beginning of semester and during the semester. The rest of the tabs will be for the end of semester and beyond. So the progress report, as we said, is the second time that students take ACES, which is usually towards the end of the semester. Again, it's basically the same as the initial report, but of course students' scores are going to look different because hopefully they've made improvements over the course of the semester. You still have a class report if you want to see everyone on all the scales. The roster report allows you to see individual students on a particular scale. And then the institutional report shows all of the students at your school's progress report scores. Let's move on to one of our new tabs here, the comparison. This is really handy if you want to see the improvement that your students made over the course of the semester. You see the initial report scores in this kind of lighter shade of red, yellow, and green. And then the progress report scores are going to be a little bit darker underneath. So for example, we can see we've made some big strides as far as critical thinking and goal setting are concerned in this course. And as a little side note, the only students who will show up in this report are those who took both the initial and the progress report. If for some reason your student skipped one of those, their results will not appear in here. Of course, the roster report works just like it does on the other tabs. You can see the scores of one particular scale for each individual student. Ginny Weasley made some big strides this semester. That's pretty impressive there. And the institutional report, again, lets you see the progress that your entire school has made over the course of the semester. The last tab I want to take a look at is the change button. This actually is a bit more precise way of calculating students' change over the semester, as it looks at students' raw ACES scores rather than putting them into that norm referenced scale that compares them to other college students. This really just looks at their individual improvements. Anywhere in green means, of course, that your students have improved. Any area in red means their scores have actually gone down in there. You can look at your class as a whole, or of course, individual students as well. And what can be really interesting here is these red areas that have gone down actually are a great reason why you want to assign the reflective activity. It allows students to think back on why that may have gone down. Maybe there was an issue from their personal life, something from another course they were taking at the time. If you do this at the end of the semester, maybe they're stressed out about final exams. It just allows students to be really self-aware of how everything else in their lives affects their college career. So there you have it. This is a more informative and a more user-friendly approach to the ACES that you know and love. To recap what we spoke about today, the experience is going to be almost exactly the same for your students, but for the instructor, you now have everything you need rather than being scattered throughout Launchpad. Everything is all available in the instructor resources and reports and your report dashboard. It brings you brand new data and easier to read results, so more information than you ever had before. I'll repeat again that to ensure the best experience in Launchpad this fall, you will want to create a new course if you haven't done so since June, rather than copying over from the previous semester. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Amy, who will open it up for some Q&A. Amy, did we lose you? Looks like you might be on mute. Okay, no worries. Let's see if I can check out the chat, see if anything came in. So one question that I did see come in, and Amy, feel free to chat any other ones that might come in. Someone asked that we walk through the course creation process again, just to make sure that they know they've got everything set up for fall correctly. So I'm happy to do that. I'm going to jump back into Launchpad here, and actually I'll work out from the beginning how this goes. So of course you end up at the landing page for your respective Launchpad. I happen to be in the one for connections. You'll enter in your email address and your password. This is the same as before, so nothing's changed there. And once you get logged in, you should end up at your instructor dashboard. If you don't, you can always come to your name and go to Switch Create Courses, and it'll take you back to the dashboard. From here, you'll go to Plus Create Course and then walk through the prompts. So you go ahead and click Next, confirming this is the Launchpad you want to use. You do not want to create a copy of an existing course, so make sure No is selected. And then fill out your course information as you see fit. Make sure this is all correct and click Create. And then from there, you'll see your new course listing up top. And if you want to go ahead and sign ACES, you'll click on the title, come on into Launchpad, and we're going to scroll down to this ACES Inventory Initial Report, open up the folder, and then just click the Assign button as you're hovering over the report. Pick your date, adjust your point value and grade category as you see fit, and then click Assign. And then, of course, feel free to set up any other activities that you want your students to complete within Launchpad. Just don't forget to activate it when you're ready. And of course, as you probably already know, we do offer integration into various learning management systems. So once you build your Launchpad course, you can then go in and link out to Blackboard, Canvas, D2L, or Moodle. I think that was all the questions. Amy appears to be muted, so we'll just kind of move forward with the rest of this. Let me jump back into our slides here. So we do want to thank you for your time today, whether you're attending live or watching this again at a later date. We really appreciate your time, and we hope that you've really gotten a lot out of what you've seen today and that you'll love the new updates for ACES this fall. If you do need some time to, or I should say, if you need some assistance getting your course set up with ACES, either if you've used it before or if you're a brand new user as well, feel free to sign up for a one-on-one session with me. That's my personal scheduling link on the screen, meetme.so/Heather Kimball. And it'll take you to a calendar where you're allowed to pick any time with me. I recommend doing it sooner rather than later, as August gets really busy for me. If you wanted to check out anything about any of our textbooks, you can go to our catalog page, macmillanlearning.com/college success. If you're specifically curious about Launchpad and want to check out any of those on your own, feel free to go to launchpadworks.com. And then you can use the instructor box to search for your title. And if there's anything else that we can do for you, I'm trying to get this little slide thing out of the way. You can email marketing manager Amy Haynes at amy.haynes@macmillan.com. Again, thank you guys for your time today, and please don't hesitate to let us know how we can help. Good luck this fall.